thank you everyone for joining us here. This is Big Talk on Global Television. I'm Muyi Agumofwegbe. We are in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Tonight we return to the conversation around Niger Republic and the situation on the ground right there in the country. We've seen so much of evolution with regards to the coup that took place there on the 26th of July, and now it is already 1 month and counting. And we realize that as of today, none of the, if you like, expectations set by the ECOWAS leadership has been accomplished. One, they had said there was need for the ousted president Mohamed Bazoum to be reinstated, and second, for the junta to ensure that all democratic processes are returned to that country. And those who have followed this development, and again, by extension, the history of coups in West Africa, have said that this is just one more disruption to democratic process in the sub-region. As of today, we know for a fact that even though the junta had said, look, we will need a maximum of 3 years, in other words, a time period of not exceeding 3 years to run, to go full cycle with transition process, ECOWAS is saying that is too long a time. The junta proposes a shorter time. And then you're wondering, does this not put ECOWAS as a regional bloc at a disadvantage as far as this negotiation is concerned? We'll look deep at these and other implications of these developments when we return from this short break. My guest on the program today is Idris Shaibu. He's a foreign affairs analyst. Idris, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, Mr. Uyi.
So I want us to begin from. I'm not just going to allow us to go through the rigors of the history of coups in this. In the sub-region, but I want us to look at the culture of unethical. Some people say. Unorthodox methods of taking over power in Africa, more so in specific in West Africa. What does this particular coup say about where we are with regards to democratic practice?
Thank you. You know, what is happening in the Niger Republic right now is, according to observers, is a sad scenario. You know, to some. The coup in Niger, it depends on the angle you are looking at. Because coup has been successful in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Guinea, does not mean that the ECOWAS, the regional bloc, should not do anything about it. ECOWAS now has drawn a line. If you can remember, the current ECOWAS chairman, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in Guinea-Bissau, he said he set out his foreign policy parameters, and he was against coup, to fight against coup and terrorism. And we had a pushback from the civil societies and opposition that why do you focus only on the coup and terrorism? We should also discuss the factors that led to coup and terrorism. Then, after that, this was prior to the coup.
Right.
So after that, in Kenya, Nairobi, during the midterm summit, African Union, he now added 3 legs to his foreign policy by advancing democracy. So what we have now is anti-coup, anti-terrorism, and pro-democracy. You understand?
Right.
So for the juntas, the coup, after that the coup took place in Niger based on different perception. The kites, the coup leaders are flying now is anti-French. You understand? That is the perception. They want the African brothers to understand that they are the good guys. That they are against neocolonialism or colonial, that the French should go.
Right.
But the French were there right from the independence. They were there to, you know, for the mineral exploitation. You understand? So for the mineral exploitation. So, but now the new thinking now is not like that of yesteryears. Now, the only window for them to have a sense of belonging, for them to control their affairs, is through coup. There is no good coup. I am not supporting coup, but we should also understand, observers believe that we should understand the factors that led to the coup.
Which means those fundamentals must be addressed by all means.
Yes. And don't forget that we also have civilian coup. We saw some African presidents that manipulate their country's constitution. For example, the Central African Republic.
Just to have tenure elongation.
That is also civilian coup.
Right.
And commentators, observers, you know, advise this bloc, ECOWAS bloc, and African Union, that why can't you approach the global institution, the government, that is the United Nations, that let's have a charter that we have maybe a punishment for coup leaders, military leaders, and the civilian coupists. Let's have a charter like that.
At least to have a semblance of fairness.
So, General Tchiani in Niger and the other commanders believe that we just want to have control of our affairs. These guys are talented. They were trained by the United States.
Does the current crop of coup leaders we have in the Niger Republic?
Yes. In fact, 7 of them are trained in the United States defense military. Even the 5 regional governors were all trained by the United States. You know, and the perception here is about French everywhere. So they use that as a tool to promote their influence. You know, the strategy is that they will have, you know, it's about survival. It's about legitimacy. You know, that is the strategy they are applying, the coupists.
Let's talk about something real quick. I mean, we have seen a bunch of sanctions being slammed on them, whether it's at the ECOWAS level or even beyond that to the AU level. And the AU is even saying, as a matter of fact, there's a pretty good chance they could hit them with more sanctions. As of today, we know for a fact, for instance, that AU has said we have cut you off from all activities regarding the African Union.
Yes.
Now, back at home, ECOWAS, Nigeria in particular, has cut them off from electricity supply. Yes. And then we understand that there have been instances of frozen accounts linked to Niger, the Nigerian government, yes, which, of course, has a blowback on these coupists as we know them right now. But you're wondering, does it appear those measures are enough to drive them into submitting to the demands of the ECOWAS?
Thank you for having me. You know, Niger Republic, according to observers, is very sensitive to the superpowers. You know, many believe that currently now, apart from Ukraine, the current crisis in Ukraine, Niger is now a new battleground for the superpowers. So for me, if you ask me that ECOWAS sanction, I will tell you that the sanctions are too, it's too early. You understand? They have already made up their mind because they have something to fall back at. Observers believe that the Wagner Group, from Russia, also have interest there. The interest of French is different from that of the Russia in Niger. And at home here, nobody is even talking about the interest of the United States in Niger. United States has vast interest there.
Military in particular.
Military in particular. They have about $500 million air bases and $100 million military drones.
Domiciled in Niger.
Domiciled in Niger.
Minus the troops.
Minus the troops, with about $30 million maintenance every month.
Just to fight insurgency.
Yes. So if you understand the interests of United States, the way they are playing it, the way they defined the coup, they didn't say it was a coup. They said they defined it as unconstitutional government. Because if United States define it as a coup, United States, of course, you and I know, United States is going to impose military and economic sanction.
Right.
They're going to withdraw all their financial assistance to Niger Republic. You understand?
Is it the United States ideally that should dictate or define whether it's a coup or not? Is it about nomenclature, or it should rather be about the character of those who are in charge in Niger Republic right now?
Yes. United States, you and I know that although many commentators believe that we are no more in a unipolar world, we are now in multipolar world. But right. Whether we like it or not, United States has strong influence on the world stage. So with United States, the way United States is playing the card, what is happening, the current issue in Ukraine, I think the coupists, they will not bow down to ECOWAS pressure easily.
Why is that?
Because they have something to fall back at. United States, if you look at their official tone, they didn't advise for military intervention. AU didn't advise for military intervention. So ECOWAS, even EU, didn't advise for military intervention.
They are pushing for dialogue.
They are pushing for dialogue. So diplomacy still remained the best way to address the current issue in Niger. So ECOWAS, being a regional bloc, has a responsibility here. So now ECOWAS currently now has understood the psychology of these international actors. United States, even the United Nations, is calling for dialogue and diplomacy. So ECOWAS understood the psychology of these international actors, and that is why ECOWAS, if you understand their body language now, they are still pushing for diplomacy.
Before we take a break, I want to ask you this. As it stands right now, ECOWAS is telling the pushists, your 3-year plan is too long for what we want to accomplish in Niger Republic. So yes. Would you propose a shorter time? Does that not already indicate that the coupists they hold the aces now, they have the advantage over ECOWAS?
That is why the conversation between the coupists and the regional bloc has to continue. Because even observers, I don't know, maybe it's a conspiracy theory, United States factor is very, very important here. We need to
Why are we not talking about French factor?
French factor, yes. They have already, they were succeeded to paint French black here. this anti-French posture.
Right.
So, and it has gained acceptance across at the continental level, even beyond the Sahel, you know. So, and ECOWAS now has, and don't forget, Nigerian president that is championing this cause. That particular Benin Republic is a very strategic.
That's Niger.
Niger is very strategic region, state to Nigeria. Nigeria interests and that of French is different again.
Right.
Even though the Western powers are with the ECOWAS, they want democracy, but Nigerian interest is different from that of French, because French, being the colonial master to Niger Republic, does not want Nigeria to undermine its influence in Niger. Nigeria, on the other hand, too, doesn't want any superpower to come and be roaming about in his backyard. It's a threat to Nigeria posture.
We're going to take a quick break now, everyone. When we return, Idris and I will talk a bit more about Niger and what ought to be done going forward by way of finding lasting peace, not just only in that country, but across the sub-region. We're back shortly with more. Stay with us. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us here on Big Talk on Global Television. So, Idris, I need to ask you this. Just as soon as the defense arm of ECOWAS announced activation of standby force, we saw Burkina Faso and Mali running to the support, to the aid of Niger Republic. Isn't that a validation of coup? On this end of the continent, because you have three countries now that, for want of better words, pride themselves in having come to power through, if you like, unconventional means. All right, and you find all three of them, as it were, being united, you know, even against all odds. Does that not embolden some other elements across even Africa to want to toe the same path?
Thank you, Mr. Uyi. You know, the issue of the standby force, I cannot say it will be very fast like that. It's not going to be easy, because it has to pass through its issue of policy and procedures. Because the member states have to go back to their parliament, the debate about it before it should be enforced. Currently, we have about 600 standby force officers, but not officially deployed in the Niger Republic. If they are officially deployed and it passed through policies and procedures, they will have a capacity of 3,000 officers. It's about maybe, let's call it a brigade.
An aggregate.
Aggregate, 3,000. So it will take time. And the new alliance in the region, the Sahel region, they are using this as a deterrence. It's a deterrence strategy. They don't want, because they have already portrayed what their interest is. They want to take charge. They want to take control of their affairs in the region. But, you know, whether we like it or not, what is happening in Niger Republic is, let me say, it's complicated, very complex. It depends on the angle you are looking at. And as I said before, the best way to address the issue is still dialogue and diplomacy.
Let's talk about the concern that some people have that all of the developments we're seeing come out of Niger Republic right now on account of this coup are a pointer to the fact that Africa as a continent is still largely tied to the apron strings of the West. So how do we divorce ourselves as Africans and as a continent from Western influence, from influences beyond Africa? At what point can Africa truly be independent, autonomous, and sovereign?
Thank you. I can say the simple answer is mutual cooperation
Amongst African nations.
African nations. And cooperation will not be that easy because we have these superpowers they use institutions to control the world. For example, United Nations. Don't forget the fact that United Nations is being controlled by especially the United Nations Security Council.
UNESCO.
United Nations
Security Council, which is very highly political.
Highly political. They have strong influence on world stage. Look at IMF and World Bank. So if these institutions are fair to Africans, if we can have equal representation, especially in the United Nations Security Council, you know, the P5, US, Russia, China, France, and the United Kingdom, they have veto power. You know, the other
at the Security Council level.
At the Security Council level. You know, the current crisis in Ukraine, sorry, I deviate, also in Niger Republic, you know, if ECOWAS concluded that they are going to deploy military force, military intervention in Niger, of course, it will go through United Nations Security Council. There's going to be a debate.
For it to be ratified?
Yes, for it to be ratified and resolution. You know, and you and I know that among these big five, the P5 rather, of the United Nations Security Council, they have their handwriting is on the current crisis.
In Niger.
There's conflict of interest there. The three Western countries, they are with a democracy, that is Mohamed Bazoum. The two are with, even though China is playing hide and seek, you know, according to many observers, but Russia came out boldly using the Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, mercenary, the late true plane crash. So, you know, these are issues. We have to look inward to develop Africa in order to compete with the committee of other nations. Because the United Nations Security Council, that is why emerging powers are advocating for a reform in that same United Nations Security Council. We have to reform it. We have to balance it. But for a resolution to take place, it must have two-thirds acceptance of the United Nations General Assembly and also ratified by this same P5. So will they approve a resolution that negates their interests? If you ask me, the answer is no.
So again, what that means is this whole conversation goes back to the individual interest of these nations who have, of course, their vested interest in many of these countries, including Niger Republic. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Idris Shaibu, for coming to share with us today insights on Niger Republic and the developments we see there. People we talk to every other day believe that it's just a matter of time that peace will find a foothold in Niger Republic, and there will be need to deploy force as far as this matter is concerned. And that's the expectation of not just Nigerians and Nigerians, but Africans and the entire world, giving the pivotal role that Niger plays in the fight against against insurgency in the sub-region. That's a full circle on our show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Uyag Mofegwe. I'll see you soon.